Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the pre-recorded lesson videos. I know it's been a little bit, it's been a weird week, especially with the STAR testing, but y'all are doing a fantastic job of adapting, and I promise everything will go back to normal soon. As you can tell by the title right now, Module 1, Lesson 6 and 7, we are combining Lesson 6 and 7 because they sort of, they're very similar, and they're also very short lessons, so we could easily combine them. We are also going to be combining lessons 8 through 9, but we'll cross that bridge tomorrow, okay? So this is lesson 6 and 7, so let's get started. As always, we always have some announcements, and these are some pretty big announcements, okay? Like I said earlier, we are doing some STAR testing. It's not really the STAR, it's more like, since y'all didn't have STAR testing last year or at the end of last year, this is just so we can see the benchmark of where y'all are at and see what areas you need me to help you out with. It's very simple. I've been sending out messages over Schoology and Remind. If you did not take it on Tuesday during live classes or office hours, you can take it during office hours this week, and Friday I will be using classes, the class period, to let people take the test that have not taken it already. It is a mandatory test. Remember, it's state testing, so you need to do it just so I can see what level y'all are at. Moving on, you can see one of the PowerPoints, the bulleted points is last 3 weeks. We are in the final stretch. But 3 weeks until report cards go out and grades are finalized. So that means turn in assignments, turn in assessments, okay? Everything is still open. I don't believe the assessments are open right now, but I will open that back up. I will be constantly messaging people every single day and parents for people to turn in assignments and assessments, because after these 3 weeks are up, the grades are going as 0. I will be sending out a final deadline date. It'll probably be October 14th is like the last day you can turn in assignments, I believe, for this class. Or no. It's October 15th. October 15th is the last day that you'll be able to turn in assignments for this class. So please turn them in. As you can see, new class schedule. Yes, we do have a new schedule. Is up here. I changed the banner for y'all. It's just small changes. So the times basically stay the same. It used to be 10:20 to 10 or 10:20 to 11:10. Now it is 10:22 to 11:10. And the PM class is 1:28 to 2:16. The biggest change is we meet every single day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We used to just meet Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays, but that is changing. We now meet every single day. So those are all the announcements. If you have any questions about that, just let me know, okay? But moving on to lesson 6 and 7, the learning goals. First thing we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to analyze one poem for its significance in conveying the development of Josh's sense of himself and his world using effective evidence. And then we're going to be able to convey important aspects of Josh by using descriptive and sensory language in a poem. Those words should be really familiar to y'all by now. Sense of himself and his world, we're still doing it. And then descriptive and sensory language, that's what we've been hammering home every single day for like the last 2 weeks, right? So the intro is a little bit different. I think it's going to be more engaging and more fun for y'all. So what we're going to do is I want y'all to draw a picture that represents the book in your opinion. It could be about anything. It could be about a character, an event in the book, something that pops into your head whenever you think of the book. I want y'all to draw it and then submit it when you're done. So you're going to follow this link, okay? Come on. You're going to type in your name right here. You're going to join the lesson, and then you're just going to draw. You're just going to draw something right here, okay? And then click submit whenever you are done, okay? I want y'all to do that right now. And whenever you are done, come back to this video, okay? Okay, welcome back. I will be checking those drawings, so hopefully You're a very great artist. If you're not, you're just like me. I am awful at drawing, but I think that intro was a bit more engaging, more fun for y'all. So hopefully you agree. Let me know what y'all thought about it. Okay, maybe we can do more of those in the future. So we're moving on to the important questions. The essential question is still the same. What is the power of storytelling? Focusing question is still the same. What shapes Josh Bell's sense of himself and his world? As you could tell by the learning goals, we are really going to be diving into sense of himself and his world in these two lessons. Okay. Okay. So as you can see, what's different is there's two content framing questions. That's because you're combining lessons 6 and 7. So the content framing question for lesson 6 is, how does a specific poem reveal deeper meaning about Josh Bell? So for this one, we are going to continue building and understanding of Josh Bell's character, what makes him tick, right? By focusing on specific poems that portray Josh Bell's sense of himself and his world the best, in my opinion and in your opinion. Okay, we're going to be picking out specific poems in this one and annotating for evidence of Josh Bell's sense of self and his view of the world. And the content framing question for lesson 7 is, what is the essential meaning of the crossover as it relates to Josh's identity? So again, remember the words essential meaning basically means theme. What is the theme of the crossover as it relates to Josh's identity? Okay, and we should be able to answer these by the end of the lesson, right? So moving on. So for lesson 6, the first activity is what I want us to do is annotate again, right? Annotating is very important to what we're doing. So we're going to be, again, collecting evidence. So as I said, we're going to be looking at specific poems in this book. So, okay, so the specific poems that we're going to be looking at that, in my opinion, contribute to Josh's sense of self and his world the best is we're going to be reading Ode to My Hair, which we've basically been doing a lot in the previous lessons, and At First, which is, I think, our first time looking at this together as a class. Y'all should have read and annotated this already in your individual reading. Also, quick side note, I have started uploading the read-along videos and the annotated videos. They're basically the same video. So look in on the course homepage for an orange folder that says Read Aloud Videos, and you'll be able to see which pages I'm reading and annotating in the video. I highly recommend you do it to see how annotating is correctly done and to see what the book is really trying to say. In my opinion, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. So we're going to be collecting evidence from those two poems, and we're going to be annotating for evidence about Josh's sense of self and his sense of the world, right? This whole book is basically about Josh and what makes him who he is and how he views the world, right? It's told in his viewpoint. But we're going to be looking at two specific poems that deal with that the most. So the first one is Ode to My Hair. Nope. There we go, Ode to My Hair. So again, Ode to My Hair, I'm not going to really read it because we've already annotated and read this together in previous lessons. I highly recommend you will go watch that if you have not already. So Ode to My Hair, remember, we're going to be annotating for sense of self and sense of the world, or view of the world, essentially. And like I said, this whole book does that, but I feel like these two poems, Ode to My Hair and At First, just do it a little bit better than the rest of the poems. So as you can see, to annotate this, remember, you had to look for specific words, specific language. You know, why did the author use those words in this situation, right? And for this, you can see sense of self all throughout this poem. And we know that what shapes Josh's sense of himself is one of the big things is his hair, right? His locks. And you can see that all throughout this poem. My Hair Were a Tree, I'd Climb It. He's basically talking about how much he loves his hair and how he takes care of his hair every day. So you are seeing sense of self all throughout right here. The only problem with this poem is that you can't really see his sense of the world, his view of the world. The only thing that you could maybe say is maybe that bet you just made, I decline it, as in that bet with his brother JB, no matter what the stakes are, it's really tough for him to say goodbye to his hair, right? So maybe that could be a sense of the world, but this poem doesn't really do sense of world that well. But I chose it because it is so perfect for Josh's sense of self. And remember, sense of self is his identity, what makes him tick, what makes him, Josh. And his hair is one of the reasons that he is the person that he is. That's why I chose it. Hopefully you're seeing that too. And if you want to know how to correctly annotate this, watch the read aloud videos or watch the previous lesson whenever we did Ode to My Hair. The poem I really wanted to get to was At First, the second poem, right? This poem is awesome. It's on page 8, right? So it's one of the first poems that you find in the book, but it is chock full of sense of self and sense of the world, right? So At First, so he in this poem, well, I'll just read it. At first, I didn't like the name because so many kids made fun of me on the school bus, at lunch, in the bathroom. Even Mom had jokes. It fits you perfectly, Josh, she said. You never clean your closet, and that bed of yours is always filled with cookie crumbs and candy wrappers. It's just plain nasty, son. But as I got older and started getting game, the name took on a new meaning. Even though I wasn't into all that jazz, every time I score, rebound, or steal a ball, Dad would jump up smiling and screaming, "That's my boy out there. Keep it funky, filthy." And that made me feel real good about my nickname. So I chose this poem as one of the best poems to show Josh's sense of self and his view of the world, because it has essentially all three of the things that he loves the most in this world in this poem. 3 things that shape his sense of self the most. It's all in this one poem. You ready? The first one is his nickname, right? His nickname, well, I guess 4 things that shape his sense of self is in this. His nickname and how he didn't like it at first, but he grew to eventually love it, right? So keep it funky, filthy, and that made me feel real good about my nickname. Remember, his nickname is Filthy McNasty, right? So his nickname is a very big part of him and who he is. So again, that's a big part of his sense of self. And why he likes that nickname so much is because he started playing basketball a little bit better, right? And basketball is, again, another reason of Josh's sense of self, another big part of him. So it mentions basketball in this and how whenever he started playing better, right, the nickname started coming into a new meaning, right? It wasn't just about Josh being, unclean with his candy wrappers and cookie crumbs on his bed, just being nasty. It's about him being, wow, this guy's really good. Wow, this guy's nasty at basketball, right? And another part of why he started loving that nickname was because his dad, right? His dad's someone that gave him that nickname, Filthy McNasty. And his dad would smile and scream and jump and say, keep it up, Filthy, during the basketball games whenever Josh does something great. And if his family is, again, like we talked about in the previous lessons, a very big part of why Josh is who he is and how he views the world is, from the influence of his family, right? And another one is, what else? Oh, I thought they mentioned the hair in this one, but they didn't. But 3 reasons, 3 big parts: his nickname, basketball, and his family. His sense of self is all throughout this, as you can see whenever they mention it. And his sense of the world is changing this one too, because you can see his relationship with his family right here, right? And how he didn't view, he was getting bullied at school because of his nickname, but, it started getting a lot better and people embraced the nickname because of his dad and his basketball play, right? And this shows that his dad, well, his family in general, but his dad specifically, has the biggest influence on Filthy and how he views himself and how he views others, or how he views the world and everything around him, right? Because it says Dad would jump up, so me feel real good about my nickname. That part specifically made him feel so good about his nickname, right? So that's why I chose this poem, about why I think this poem really, really shows Josh's sense of self and his world Obviously, there's more poems in the second part of the book. These two poems I just chose because these are the poems located within the assigned reading pages I have given to y'all so far. But of course, other pages in the book definitely show Josh's sense of self and his view of the world just as well, right? But we haven't gotten to those poems yet. And these are just some of the things that you could do for poems that you're reading throughout the book right now, right? You can pick any poem and annotate for sense of self and sense of world, evidence about that. And I highly recommend that you do that. That's one of the things that you could be annotating while you're reading this book. There's parts where I do that for the annotated readings that I do, or the read aloud videos I've been uploading. So again, that's why I recommend watch those videos, because it's really going to help you. Okay. So moving on. So we're going to keep staying with collecting evidence, right, and annotating the poems or the specific poems. But I want us to turn our attention away from sense of self and view of the world, but not completely turn away from it. Keep that in the back of our mind, but we're going to shine a negative light on it. So I want us to focus on poems that show that Josh's world is becoming more complicated, right? I want us to analyze for important insights about how Josh's sense of self and his world is challenged or disrupted. Okay? So the poem that I decided to show, or to show y'all, that perfectly shows that Josh's world is becoming more complicated and how his sense of self is becoming challenged or disrupted, is the poem Bad News. It is on page 82. So I pulled it up right here, Bad News. So here's Bad News. I sit in Mom's office for an hour, reading brochures and pamphlets about the Air Force and the Marines. She's in and out handling principal stuff. A parent protesting her daughter's F, a prank substitute teacher crying, a broken window. After an hour, she finally sits in the chair next to me and says, "The good news is I'm not going to suspend you. The bad news, Josh, is that neither Duke nor any other college accepts cheaters. Since I can't seem to make a decent man out of you, perhaps the Air Force or Marines can." I want to tell her I wasn't cheating, that this is all JB and Miss Sweet T's fault, that this will never happen again, that Duke is the only thing that matters. But a water pipe bursts in the girls' bathroom. So I tell her, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. Then head off to my next class. So up to this point, Josh's life has been pretty good, right? He's dominating his 7th grade basketball team. They're winning. He has a great relationship with his family, right? He's super close with his brother. But hopefully you are reading this because we're keeping up with the book, because you won't know who Miss Sweet Tea is. But Miss Sweet Tea is JB's, Josh's twin brother, his girlfriend, right? His new girlfriend. And ever since she started dating JB, everything has changed in his life, right? So as you can see, Josh got caught for cheating, but he wasn't really cheating, right? He was just helping JB pass notes to Miss Sweet Tea and help them pass notes back and forth. But the teacher saw something different and, reported him for cheating. Okay. So Josh's life is getting disrupted here, right? And his sense of self, because of this, is getting disrupted a little bit too, right? Basketball was a very big thing about that, but it seems like it could get maybe taken away if he doesn't straighten out and keep out of trouble, right? Because she said maybe the Air Force and Marines can make a decent man out of you instead of Duke or any college where he wants to play basketball at. So maybe basketball could get taken away. And maybe his relationship with his brother is starting to fall apart because he just had to take the blame for JB's mistakes, right? So this poem is a great example of Josh's sense of self and his world being challenged or disrupted, right? And why looking at this is so important is what makes up your identity and what makes you who you are is going through troubles, going through hard times. It tests you, and it knows what it basically shows you what you are about and how you handle adversity, right? Is a great poem to show how Josh is handling this and how eventually every poem after this one, how he's starting to turn out, right? So I highly recommend whenever you are reading, if you don't really see a whole lot of evidence about Josh's sense of self or his sense of world jumping out at you, try to annotate it for maybe something is challenging his sense of self, his view of the world, right? Maybe something is making him stray from the path that he's always wanted to be on, okay? So those are just some of the things that you should be looking out for. Obviously, if you have any questions about that, let me know, okay? So next is concrete nouns. So we're going to be switching up the pace a little bit here and focusing more on words, right? And the format of it. And you know how in the learning goals you said we were going to be looking at more sensory descriptive language today? This is what we're going to be doing. So what we're going to be focusing at is concrete nouns. And the definition of concrete nouns is things we can experience through our five senses. We can see, hear, smell, taste, or feel them. So they are nouns that we can physically see, hear, smell, taste, or feel. So in narrative writing, we use active, precise verbs and concrete nouns as tools of descriptive and sensory language. So remember whenever I showed you examples of descriptive and sensory language words in the book and certain lines that we can find them in, and how I give you examples of active, precise verbs and concrete nouns. This is what we're going to be focusing more on that now, right? An example of those were red Corvette instead of car, shovel pass instead of throw. This basically spices up your writing a little bit more and makes writing a little bit more fun, okay? So what I want y'all to do is look at these examples: circus, fast food restaurant, backpack, waiting room. And I want you to think of concrete nouns that we can find in these examples or in these locations. So take a couple seconds, brainstorm a little bit, right? Pause this video, brainstorm for each four and see what you can come up with. And then I will share with you what I came up with as well. See if we have the same thing and see if you're understanding what concrete noun is, okay? So pause this video and then come back. Okay, so for circus, example of concrete nouns that you can find there is, I don't know, like cotton candy, peanuts, maybe an elephant, clowns, things that we can actually see, right? And then for cotton candy, the taste. Maybe hearing, you hear like music, right? You hear horns going off, right? So those are examples of concrete nouns that you can find in a circus. For a fast food restaurant, it's easy, burgers, fries, drinks, ketchup, the booths that you sit in, like the chairs and stuff, menus, those are just those are examples of in fast food restaurants. For a backpack, just anything that you have in your backpack, right? Journals, pens, notebooks, folders, things like that. Waiting room, it could be magazines, chairs, plants. Those are examples of concrete nouns, right? Things that we can actually see, hear, smell, taste, or feel, right? And hopefully you're understanding what that means and how having concrete nouns in your writing really, really help you out, because that allows, or being really specific with the concrete nouns really helps the reader paint a picture in the head of the words that they're reading, right? Like example in the book was, instead of using car, right, they use red Corvette, right? Instead of using, what is a good one? Example that I had in the vocabulary deep dive a couple lessons ago was, instead of saying dog, it was like a golden retriever, right? A German shepherd. Those are just some of the things, right, that you could do to spice up your writing a little bit more and make it a little bit better for the reader to imagine what they're actually reading, right? So that's just an example of concrete nouns. And we're going to be doing this for the assignment that I'm going to give to y'all at the end of this lesson, okay? So next we're going to move on to abstract concepts. So what abstract concepts are, so concrete nouns in the previous slide, they help readers imagine abstract concepts. So abstract concepts are general ideas, and often very important ones, that are not concrete. So we can't see, hear, smell, taste, or feel an exact or real representation of the concept, right? They are general ideas. And I want y'all to think of a couple of examples of what you think an abstract concept is, and then come back to this video, okay? Let's see if you have it down. Okay, so welcome back. So hopefully you thought of some examples of what you think an abstract concept is. So an abstract concept, some of the examples is love, jealousy, teamwork, confidence, right? So these are things that you can't really see. You know what they are, right? And you know what it is whenever you technically see it, but you don't really see it, right? They're not things that you can see, hear, smell, taste, or feel, but you know what it is, right? And those are just some examples of abstract concepts. And concrete nouns can really help out with helping readers imagine abstract concepts. You can write very descriptive words to help show what love is, what characters are falling in love in your writing, right? You can show very real examples of teamwork, right? And an example of that is anytime they're playing basketball in this book, right? Whenever, especially JB and Josh, when they're playing together, right? Their passes, how they basically talk to each other without really talking to each other. That's just an example of how you can show teamwork, an abstract concept, in your writing by using concrete nouns. If that makes sense. And Josh Bell's identity. Remember, we keep talking about sense of self and view of the world. Again, that's another term for identity, right? Everyone has an identity. And what we've been focusing on in this every single lesson so far is Josh Bell's identity. And that in itself is a abstract idea or abstract concept, right? Identity is an abstract concept, right? You can't really see in the identity, but they are certain concrete nouns or concrete words or words in general that can help you see someone's identity if you can't see the identity itself, right? For Josh Bell's identity, the descriptive words talking about his hair, right? Him playing basketball, his relationship with his family. Those are things that you can physically picture in your mind that help shape Josh Bell's identity, which is something that you can't physically see, right? Hopefully that makes sense to y'all. And if it doesn't, please let me know. Maybe sign up for a tutorial session, and then we could go into a lot more, right? Remember, then these are just some things that can shape up your writing and make it a little bit better, right? So like I said, we're going to be using concrete nouns and maybe some verbs and adjectives in this assignment that I'm about to give y'all. So it's located in the course homepage. What you're going to do is you're going to click on the document, and all the instructions are inside. It's really self-explanatory whenever you see it. What you're going to do is you're going to fill in the blanks to create a poem. If you can't access the document, please message me on Schoology or email me, and I'll get you access to it, okay? So here's the assignment. As you can see, again, it's very straightforward. Is a fill in the blank. In this blank, I want you to do a precise adjective right here, right? So write a precise adjective right there. For this one, simile. Write a simile. Write something in there that makes this sentence into simile. So he plays basketball like, right? It's already set up. You can do something that you write, right? Just make this sentence into a simile. For this one, write an active verb in there. For this one, make this sentence into a metaphor. So you do seriously, Josh is, you could say Josh is a bird whenever he plays basketball, right? That's one thing. That's a metaphor. I want you to make this into a metaphor. Please don't use is a bird on your assignment, please. Again, precise adjective. Make this sentence into a metaphor. Make this sentence into a simile. It's very self-explanatory. If you need help on it, just let me know, okay? But again, that's on your course homepage. But moving on, I know I said I was going to do vocabulary deep dives in a separate video, but this is just so much easier to do it like this. So this vocabulary deep dive is very simple. We're just going to be introducing some new terms and refreshing ourselves on past terms. So metaphor, simile, allusion, we've gone through these in previous lessons, right? And metaphor, again, you see the definition, you see the definition for simile, and you see the definition for allusion, right? Examples of a metaphor that you can find in the book, again, is in a poem, Josh says, the hoop is for sale and I am the buyer. Right? That's an example of a metaphor because he's basically comparing it to maybe buying buying something, right? Wherever, so he's comparing him playing basketball to someone buying something, essentially, without the use of like or as. For simile, remember, they use the word like or as. An example is, your game is fresh and new, like a red Corvette, right? And an allusion is making a reference to something, a reference made to something that's not directly mentioned. An example of this is when Chuck Bell said, "I balled with Magic and the GOAT." Magic and the GOAT, they're alluding to real-life basketball players, Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan, right? Hopefully that you still understand that. And again, those are examples of figurative language. And figurative language gives readers, new insights, and they make writing more interesting, right? It's a lot easier to read and more fun to read whenever you have great figurative language in there. So I'm going to introduce a new kind of figurative language to give you a deeper look into Josh's character, right? Because there's a lot of examples of this one in the book. And the example is hyperbole. So the definition of hyperbole is in writing or speaking when one overstates or magnifies a point in order to emphasize its importance. Simile is overstatement, exaggeration, figure of speech. Example is because my game's acclaimed. So this is basically just exaggeration. So exaggerations, authors use it to give certain emotions or events emphasis, right? So for the example, because whenever he says, because my game's acclaimed, he's exaggerating. He's a 7th grade basketball player. His basketball skills isn't actually acclaimed. He's just saying that to prove a point, right? Another example is in the poem Josh Bell, which is one of the first poems in the book. He compares himself to KD, LeBron, and Chris Paul. He's not actually, thinking that he's like KD, LeBron, and Chris Paul because, he's in the 7th grade. There's no way he's as good as they are right now, but he's just saying that to over-exaggerate, to say that, hey, I'm the best on the team, right? Another one is burn mad as a flame. He's not actually, catching on fire because he's so mad. He's just exaggerating. Then another one was when I play ball, I'm on fire. And whenever he plays basketball, he's not actually on fire, but he just wants people to know that he's hot. Whenever he plays, he's always on. He's always the best. And burn mad as a flame, and when I play ball, I'm on fire. Those are examples of similes and metaphors, right? Similes, metaphors, and allusions can also be hyperboles, right? They can also exaggerate, help, exaggerate certain things. Just because they're one thing doesn't mean it can't be the other. They can be both, right? So metaphors, similes, and allusions, they can still be hyperboles, okay? And then another example of hyperbole in the book is in the poem Before. That's found in page 133. And the example of the hyperbole in the poem, which I recommend you look at, is covered in my dirt, or covered in, wait, let me pull it up. Yeah, it is covered in more dirt than a chimney, right? Again, that is an example of a metaphor, right? Covered in more dirt than a chimney. Sorry, that is the bell. But again, he's not saying that he's dirtier than a chimney, right? He's just exaggerating, right? So those are examples of hyperboles that you find in the book. Hopefully you're slowly understanding what a hyperbole is. If you're not, please let me know so I can explain it deeper, okay? Okay, so that was the end of the lesson. Hopefully things are making more sense to you. If not, please let me know so I can help you in certain areas that you still need help with, right? Maybe sign up for a tutorial session. I highly recommend that people do that just so they can get a deeper understanding of certain topics, right? So we basically focus on 2 different lessons today, and hopefully it's making more sense. And remember, the content framing question for lesson 6 was, how does a poem reveal deeper meaning about Josh Bell? So remember what we essentially did was we looked at specific poems about Josh Bell's identity, sense of self and his world, and how looking at specific poems and annotating specific poems can really show us more about Josh Bell and what makes him tick. Also, for lesson 7, we basically just looked at vocabulary words, concrete nouns, and abstract concepts, and how they're found in the book and how they make writing better. So again, do your assignment that I just assigned to you. Finish up any assignments or assessments that you haven't done. Remember to show up this week during office hours or on Friday during class to finish up testing. And remember, and the assigned reading is 135 to 169. I will be uploading the read aloud videos for those very soon. Again, if you have questions, thoughts, or concerns, let me know. But yeah, that is it. And I will see you here next for lessons 8 and 9.